I need $45,000 by tomorrow morning, my father said, slamming a thick envelope onto the table. Or I am going to prison. He did not say hello. He did not ask how I was. He just pointed at the document in front of me. Sign it. It was a quitclaim deed. He wanted me to sign over the title of my apartment. The only thing my mother had left solely to me. To cover up a loan he had already taken out in my name. I forged a power of attorney, he admitted, his face red. The lender is running a title check tomorrow. If you do not sign this retroactively, they will see I never owned the property. And they will call the police. My brother Nolan sat next to him, refusing to look at me. Please, win, he whispered. If Dad goes to jail, the loan sharks come for me. I gave you life, David roared. I put food on your table. You sign this paper, Winifred, or you are sending your own father to jail. I picked up the pen. If I sign this, I said, is the debt cleared between us? Forever? Just sign the damn paper. I signed my name. I was not signing away a house. I was signing a severance package. David snatched the paper. He did not say thank you. He just marched toward the door. You did the right thing, he threw over his shoulder. For once, the door slammed. I sat in the silence for exactly 10 seconds. Then I pulled out my phone and dialed my chief financial officer. Initiate Project Omega, I said. The bank downgraded David Vance's logistics company to high risk last quarter. Instruct our holding company to offer the bank 60 cents on the dollar to take that toxic asset off their books. Today, David thought he had just stolen $45,000. He did not know he had just sold his soul to the chairman of WH Holdings. I walked out of that suffocating apartment and did not look back. The rain had started. A cold, gray drizzle that slicked the pavement and made the city lights bleed across the windshield of my car. I did not drive back to a studio apartment. I did not drive to a rental. I drove to the 42nd floor of the Meridian Spire. The valet took my keys without a word. The private elevator scanned my fob and whisked me upward in silence. When the doors opened, I stepped into my real life. Floor-to-ceiling glass. Polished concrete. The hum of a server room tucked away in the wall. This was the fortress I had built while my family thought I was playing house. I poured a glass of water and stood by the window, looking down at the city. From up here, the cars looked like toys. The people were invisible. It was easy to feel powerful when you were looking down, but my hands were still cold from the draft in my mother's old living room. They thought I was weak. They thought I was the freelancer, the gig worker, the daughter who scrambled for scraps while Nolan was groomed for a throne that did not exist. David loved to tell the story of the great turnaround. He told it at every Christmas party, every Sunday dinner, every chance he got to hear his own voice. 3 years ago, he would say, puffing out his chest, the logistics market crashed. Everyone went under. But I had the instinct. I steered the ship through the storm. I found the investors. I saved the legacy. He was lying. He was not malicious about it. He was just delusional. 3 years ago, David Vance Logistics was insolvent. I knew because I had hacked his email using the password 123, and saw the foreclosure notices. He was 3 weeks away from locking the doors. I did not tell him. I did not offer a loan he would have refused or squandered. Instead, I created Apex Supply Chain Solutions, a shell vendor registered in Delaware. I funneled 3 massive shipping contracts through Apex directly to David's company. I paid premium rates. I covered his payroll for 18 months. I sat at his dinner table while he bragged about landing the Apex account. They saw the quality, David had said, pointing a fork at me. That is how business works, Winifred. You build a reputation, and the big dogs come calling. You could learn a thing or two if you ever got a real job. I remember staring at my plate, cutting a piece of dry roast beef. I had signed the Apex checks that morning. I was the big dog. I am happy for you, Dad, I had said. Do not just be happy, he sneered. Be ambitious. Nolan is taking over the fleet management next month. He is stepping up. What are you doing? Still designing websites? Something like that. He laughed then. A dismissive, heavy sound. Cute. Well, at least one of my kids has the killer instinct. I swallowed the insult along with the beef. I let him play the hero. I let him believe his own myth because I thought if I saved his company, maybe he would finally see me. Maybe the success would make him kind. I was wrong. The money did not make him kind. It made him arrogant. It funded Nolan's gambling. It bought the new trucks they did not need. It fueled the very ego that led him to forge a document and steal my home. I finished my water and set the glass on the marble counter. The justification period was over. I had spent 3 years being the invisible crutch that kept my father standing. Tonight, I kicked the crutch away. I was not the daughter who needed saving anymore. I was the ghost in the machine. And the ghost was done being polite. 1 week later, my phone vibrated with a photo notification. It was Nolan. He was leaning against a brand new Ford F-150 Raptor, slate gray, parked in the driveway of David's rented townhouse. The caption read, "New wheels for the new VP. Success looks good on me." I zoomed in on the image. The paper dealer tags were still on the dashboard. The $45,000 from the hard money loan, the money meant to pay off the loan sharks and save the family, had hit David's account on Tuesday morning. By Friday afternoon, $8,000 of it was sitting in my brother's driveway. They were not paying off debts. They were celebrating a heist. On Sunday night, my phone rang. It was David. I was sitting in my living room, reviewing the acquisition documents my lawyers had finalized that afternoon. I put the phone on speaker and set it on the marble island. "Winifred," David said. His voice was loud, booming, thick with red wine and unearned victory. "You missed a hell of a dinner. Prime rib." Nolan grilled it. "I am sure it was great," I said, turning a page of the contract. "We are celebrating," David continued. "The company is back on track. We cleared the immediate hurdles. I told you. All we needed was a little liquidity. You were so worried about that dusty old apartment, holding on to the past. It served its purpose," I said flatly. "It did." David laughed. "You know, getting rid of that dead weight was the best thing for everyone. It forced us to be aggressive. You could learn a thing or two from your brother's ambition. He walked into the dealership today and negotiated a killer deal. That is how you do business. You project power." I looked at the file on my screen. W.H. Holdings Asset Portfolio. David Vance Logistics was listed right at the top. Status acquired. "Hey, Win." Nolan's voice chimed in from the background, slurrying slightly. "Do not be bitter, okay? I know you loved that place, but you have to break a few eggs to make an omelet. Thanks for the signature, sis. Really." "Yeah," David added. "We are going to expand the fleet next month. Nolan has big ideas. You stick to your little freelance gigs, sweetheart. Leave the empire building to the men." The background noise was a wash of clinking glasses and laughter. They were so confident. They thought they had outsmarted the system. They thought they had stripped me of my only asset and walked away clean. They had no idea that the hard money loan they took out had triggered a covenant violation in their existing business line of credit. They did not know that the bank, upon seeing the new high-risk lien on the apartment, had panicked. And they definitely did not know that when the bank panicked, they called me. "I am glad you are happy, Dad," I said. "Enjoy the truck, Nolan." "We will," Nolan said. "Maybe I will let you ride in it sometime." I hung up. I looked at the FedEx tracking number on my laptop screen. It was scheduled for delivery tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. It was not a thank you card. It was not a family newsletter. It was a certified letter from W.H. Holdings. A notice of acceleration. Because David had destabilized his collateral by taking out the predatory loan on the apartment, his primary business loan was now in default. As the new note holder, I was not asking for monthly payments anymore. I was calling the entire loan due. They were feasting on the deck of a sinking ship. And I had just ordered the torpedoes. 2 weeks later, the FedEx envelope landed on David's desk at 3 minutes past 9 in the morning. I was not there to see it. But I knew the timestamp because my assistant, Elena, got the delivery notification. She forwarded it to me with a single line. "Package received. The clock is ticking." David did not call me. He called the number on the letterhead, the dedicated line for W.H. Holdings. It routed directly to a voicemail box I had set up the night before. I listened to the message an hour later. "This is David Vance," he said, his voice tight, trying to sound authoritative but slipping into panic. "I received a notice regarding my business line of credit. There must be a mistake. We are fully solvent. The collateral, the apartment, was leveraged strategically. It is a bridge loan. I need to speak to a loan officer immediately." There was no mistake. The letter was a notice of acceleration. When David took out that predatory loan on the apartment, he placed a second lien on an asset that was already pledged as collateral for his primary business loan. That was a covenant violation. A breach of contract. The bank did not want to deal with a messy foreclosure involving hard money lenders. They wanted out. That is why they sold the note to me for pennies on the dollar. Now, as the new note holder, I was not asking for monthly payments. I was calling the entire principal due. $312,000. Payable in 48 hours. By Wednesday afternoon, David's confidence had evaporated. I watched the desperation play out in real-time logs. He applied for 3 emergency business loans online. All were auto-rejected because I had already filed a UCC lien against his accounts receivable. He called his old golfing buddies. They did not pick up. He even tried to call the hard money lender to reverse the apartment deal. But that cash was already gone. Spent on Nolan's truck and a pile of past due invoices. He was trapped in a box he had built himself. At 4 p.m. on Thursday, an email hit the WH Holdings inbox. Subject: Urgent request for restructuring meeting. The email read, "To the chairman, my firm is facing a temporary liquidity challenge due to aggressive expansion. We have significant assets and a solid fleet. I am requesting a face-to-face meeting to discuss a restructuring agreement. I am confident we can come to terms that benefit everyone." It was classic David. Even when begging for his life, he tried to sound like a tycoon. I dictated the reply to Elena. "Mr. Vance, the chairman is reviewing your file. He is willing to meet tomorrow at 10 a.m. to discuss a potential workout strategy. Be advised, this is your only window to avoid immediate liquidation. Bring all current financials." Elena sent it. David replied in 4 minutes. "Confirmed. My VP and I will be there." I closed my laptop and walked to the window of my penthouse. The city was bright below me, a grid of lights and moving parts. They were coming. David and Nolan were going to put on their best suits. They were going to polish their shoes. They were going to walk into my building believing they were about to con a stranger into saving them one last time. They did not know the chairman was the girl they had left in a dust-filled apartment with nothing but a pen and a broken heart. "Elena," I said, pressing the intercom, "prepare the glass box for tomorrow. And tell security to expect 2 guests. No badges. Escort only." "Understood, Miss Vance." I turned off the lights. The trap was set. At 10 a.m. David and Nolan walked into the fishbowl. It was a masterpiece of intimidation engineering. Suspended in the center of the 42nd floor, the conference room was a cube of flawless, soundproof glass. From inside, you could see the entire operation, the traders, the analysts, the power, but you could not hear a thing. You were on display, stripped of privacy, a specimen in a jar. I watched them from my office monitors. David wore his closing suit, a navy pinstripe that had seen better days. Nolan tugged at a tie that was too tight, sweating already. They sat at the long marble table, arranging their folders, checking their watches, rehearsing the lies they were about to tell a stranger. I waited 5 minutes. Let them marinate. Let them feel the silence of the room. Then I signaled my security chief. "Marcus. Showtime." I walked down the hall. Marcus opened the glass door for me. David did not look up immediately. He was busy straightening a stack of falsified balance sheets. "Good morning," he said, putting on his best salesman voice. "We appreciate the—" He looked up. The sentence died in his throat. "Winifred?" He blinked, his face twisting into a mask of confusion. "What are you doing here? Did you get a job as a secretary? We are waiting for the chairman. Go get us some coffee." "Black." Nolan snickered, the sound nervous and thin. "Yeah, win. And make it quick. The adults are talking." I did not speak. I walked to the head of the table and sat down. Marcus stepped inside, crossed his arms, and locked the glass door with a heavy, deliberate click. "I am the chairman," I said. David stood up so fast his chair tipped over. "Is this a joke? You think this is funny? I am losing my company, and you are playing dress-up in your boss's office. Get out before I—" "Sit down," I said. My voice was not loud, but it cut through his bluster like a scalpel. I slid a single folder across the marble. W.H. Holdings stands for Winifred Holdings. I bought your debt yesterday. I own the note. I own the liens. I own you." David stared at the folder. His face went from red to a terrifying pale gray. He sank back into his chair. "You bought the loan?" "Pennies on the dollar," I confirmed. "Because you are a toxic asset, Dad. You cannot do this," Nolan stammered. "We are family. We were family when you stole my home," I said. "Now, we are creditor and debtor. And as your creditor, I have some questions about your bookkeeping." David rallied, trying to find his old arrogance. "My books are clean. The liquidity issue is temporary. I built this company from nothing. I am a self-made man." "No," I said. "You aren't." I pressed a button on the console. The glass walls of the room turned opaque, descending privacy shades that shut out the world. The projector hummed to life. A chart appeared on the wall. "Cash flow analysis, 2020 to 2023. This is Module 2, I said softly. "A world without Winifred. What is this?" David whispered. 3 years ago, you were insolvent," I explained, pointing to the red line on the graph that plummeted toward 0. "You were 3 weeks away from a tax evasion indictment. Then, suddenly, Apex Supply Chain appeared. A miracle client. They paid premium rates. They covered your payroll. They kept you out of prison." I clicked the remote. The next slide showed the incorporation papers for Apex Supply Chain. Signed by Winifred Vance. "I was Apex," I said. I funneled $10,000 of my own profit into your failing company every month for 3 years. I paid your salary. I paid for Nolan's car insurance. I paid for the steak dinners where you laughed at my little freelance gigs. David looked at the screen, then at me. His mouth worked, but no sound came out. The myth of his genius, the story he told himself to sleep at night, evaporated in the blue light of the projector. You are not a titan of industry, Dad, I said. You are a charity case. And the donor just closed the checkbook. You tricked me, he rasped, his eyes wet with humiliation. You let me believe. I let you survive, I corrected. But yesterday, as a condition of this meeting, you allowed my auditors to inspect your warehouse. You thought they were counting boxes. They were forensic accountants. I dropped a heavy binder onto the table. It landed with a sound like a gavel. They found the transfers, Dad. Pre-tax company revenue moved directly to offshore sports betting accounts registered to Nolan. Nolan whimpered. That is embezzlement, I said. That is tax fraud. That is 10 years in federal prison. I slid a pen across the table. Next to it, 2 documents. Option A. I hand this binder to the IRS and the FBI immediately. Option B. You sign over 100% of your equity to WH Holdings. Resign as CEO effective immediately. And vacate the premises. David looked at the pen. He looked at his son, who was shaking, weeping silently. He looked at the daughter he had dismissed as a piece of furniture. He realized then that he had never known me. He had looked at me for 29 years and seen only a reflection of his own ego. Now, the mirror was broken. He picked up the pen. His hand trembled so violently the signature was barely legible. Smart choice, I said. David signed the papers. His signature was a jagged scrawl of defeat. Nolan sat beside him, head in his hands, making a sound like a leaking tire. They left the glass box without another word. Security escorted them out the back way. I sat in the silence of the conference room for a long time. The city lights flickered on below. I thought it was over. I thought I had won. I underestimated the survival instinct of a narcissist. 3 days later, a process server dropped a thick envelope on my receptionist's desk. I did not need to open it to know what it was. The text from my lawyer, Grace, confirmed it 2 minutes later. He is suing you, she said. Civil suit, fraudulent inducement, undue influence, and elder abuse. I turned on the TV in my office. There was David, standing on the steps of the courthouse, wearing a cardigan I had never seen him wear before. He looked frail. He looked confused. He was playing the role of his life. My daughter, he told the reporters, wiping a dry eye, took advantage of a moment of weakness. She tricked a confused old man into signing away his life's work. She is a predator. The narrative was perfect. The big, bad corporate raider stealing the family business from her struggling father. Social media began to murmur. My board members started calling. The stock price of WH Holdings wobbled. Just a fraction. David was not trying to win in court. He knew he signed the papers legally. He was trying to blackmail me into a settlement. He wanted a payout to go away. He sent me a text that night. $5 million and I drop the suit. Or, I burn your reputation to the ground. I looked at the message. He thought he was playing chess. He thought he had found a stalemate. He forgot that I had the rest of the audit. The deposition was scheduled for Friday. A neutral conference room at a law firm downtown. David walked in with a strut I had not seen since before the bank froze his assets. He sat across from me, smirking. His lawyer, a cheap shark named Barnes, opened a briefcase. My client is willing to settle, Barnes said, sliding a paper across the table. Return the equity, provide a severance package of $5 million, and issue a public apology. David leaned back, crossing his arms. It is a good deal, Win. Take it. You do not want the world knowing you abuse the elderly. I looked at Grace. She nodded. I did not touch his settlement paper. I reached into my bag and pulled out a single, red USB drive. I placed it in the center of the table. Do you know what piercing the corporate veil means, Dad? I asked. David frowned. Stop with the legal mumbo-jumbo. Pay me. It is a legal concept, I continued, my voice flat. Usually, a corporation protects its owner. If the company goes bankrupt, the owner does not lose his personal house or his savings. That is limited liability. It is a shield. I tapped the USB drive, but that shield only exists if you treat the company like a separate entity. If you mix personal money with business money, if you commingle funds, the law says the company is a sham. The shield breaks. The veil is pierced. David's smirk faltered. So what? I borrowed a little cash. You did not borrow, I said. My forensic accountants went through 5 years of your ledgers. We found the transfers. You took pre-tax revenue, Money that belonged to the IRS and your creditors, and you wired it directly to Nolan's offshore sports betting accounts. You paid for your girlfriend's condo in Boca with the payroll account. I opened the file folder I had brought. I laid out the wire transfer receipts. This is tax fraud, Dad. This is embezzlement. And because you commingled funds, you have pierced the corporate veil. I leaned forward. That means the company's debts. The $5 million you owe the bank, the vendors, the IRS, are no longer corporate debts. They are your debts. Personal. Unlimited. David looked at his lawyer. Barnes was pale. He was closing his briefcase. He knew. The IRS has already been notified, I said. This USB drive is currently on the desk of a special agent in the Criminal Investigation Division. You are not suing me for a settlement, Dad. You are about to be indicted for federal tax evasion. David made a noise. A choked, wet sound. He looked at the door, as if expecting the police to burst in right then. You called the IRS? He whispered. I am your father, and I am the creditor you tried to blackmail. I said. The lawsuit is dead. The settlement is dead. And so is your freedom. Barnes stood up. I cannot represent you in a criminal matter, Mr. Vance. I am withdrawing as counsel. He walked out. David sat alone at the table. The silence was heavy, absolute. The frail old man act was gone. The tycoon was gone. All that was left was a criminal waiting for the handcuffs. Why? He asked. Tears finally spilling over. Real tears this time. Why do you hate me this much? I do not hate you, I said, standing up. I just stopped paying for your mistakes. I walked out of the room. I left him there with the USB drive and the wreckage of his own greed. He had tried to use the law to trap me. Instead, he had walked into the only prison I could not save him from. 1 month later, the silence was absolute. David traded his corner office for a public defender. The IRS indictment came down on a Tuesday. Sweeping and undeniable. He was facing federal charges for tax evasion, wire fraud, and embezzlement. The bankruptcy court seized his remaining personal assets before the criminal trial even began. Nolan fared no better. They towed his truck from the driveway while he watched from the window. The asset forfeiture team did not care about his excuses. He lost the vehicle, the apartment, and the last shred of his unearned pride. I did not go to the arraignment. I did not read the articles. I had other business to attend to. I stood in the center of the living room. The air smelled of fresh primer and lemon oil. The lender had accepted my cash offer before the foreclosure sign even hit the lawn. My mother's apartment was mine again, legally, irrevocably. The dusty table where David had slammed his fist was gone. The peeling wallpaper was stripped away. I ran my hand along the wall. I had painted it a soft robin's egg blue, the color my mother had always wanted but David had called wasteful. It looked perfect. I sat on the floor, my back against the fresh paint, and opened my laptop. There was one folder left on my desktop labeled Family. Inside were the wire transfers, the forensic audit, the recordings, the years of proof that I had been their safety net while they treated me like a snare. I did not hesitate. I selected the folder. I dragged it to the trash. I emptied the bin. Delete. The screen blinked, and the file vanished. I pulled out my phone. 3 blocked numbers still sat in my recents list. I cleared the history. For 29 years, I had carried the weight of their expectations, their debts, and their cruelty. I had believed that if I just carried enough of it, they would eventually love me. I stood up and walked to the window. The sun was breaking through the clouds, washing the street below in a clean, golden light. I opened the window and let the breeze hit my face. It tasted like rain and freedom. Family is who protects you, not who holds you hostage. If you are the one breaking the cycle, do not look back. The view ahead is beautiful.